Okay, welcome everyone to the third webinar in the series checking in on TCNs and their networks of digitization knowledge. Today, we are happy to have two TCNs that will be represented in today's webinar. We first have the Lil Smart Bee project, developed bilingual resources and a cartoon for the TCN iDigBees, and that we'll have Ann Basham, who's a co-PI for the iDigBees TCN. And then second, we will have a multi-institutional projects akin to TCN should leverage social media free and user-friendly tools to promote their work, improve data accessibility, and strengthen connections among partner institutions with Victoria Westover from the DigIn digitization program. So I'm going to start off by passing the mic to Ann Basham. We will be saving all of the questions till the end of the webinar. So if you want to add a question along the way into the Q&A, please feel free to do so. But also if you want to raise your hand at the end, we can open up mics too and have a conversation. But thank you again for tuning in, and Ann, I'm passing it to you. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Ann Basham, co-PI project director of the Lil Smart Bee project with iDigBees. So the Lil Smart Bee project is an outreach initiative of iDigBees funded by National Science Foundation, sponsored by the Biodiversity Outreach Network. And the project also involved a partnership with FLAR, the Foundation for Latin American Anthropological Research, that's based in Guatemala. And Mayan Tunes is a division of FLAR. They're involved in developing educational books and media based on research and field expeditions in Guatemala. And Dr. Nicholas Helmuth is the co-founder and director of FLAR and Mayan Tunes. He's also a colleague of mine. I worked with him for several years. And he's an archaeologist, a naturalist, photographer, and an expert in Mayan iconography. So you can see him here photographing. So they've done a lot of work in education and outreach and related to their research. And so they've it's been a real privilege working with them. Their team was also involved in developing the actual cartoon, that we created for about elementary age students. And we see here one of the illustrators. So the 7-minute cartoon and audiobook features Lil Smart Bee, who in this episode encounters a common honeybee. And I think maybe I'll just, instead of breaking at this point, maybe at the very end, I'll maybe show you a little sneak preview of it, about a few minutes of it, but it's about 7 minutes. The cartoon kind of integrates and highlights various features related to by way of anatomy, the differences between the Melipona BJ and the common honeybee. And they take on their own particular characters and personalities as they educate children about apiculture and Melipona culture as it takes place in Guatemala and Mexico, one of those areas. But also refers to the cultural connections, the cultural significance of the stingless bee in Mayan culture. And then, of course, the value of being different, the importance of diversity. So we've tried to integrate a lot of important messages along with STEM education. We also produced some interactive learning mats, teacher guide, and all resources are bilingual, but we also hope to translate into at least one of the, Kachikal, which is one of the 22 Mayan languages that exist. There are many schools that know Spanish, but there are some that are, just largely Mayan languages. So we want to make sure we're inclusive to all those groups. So our key objectives is, of course, to promote awareness of the native bees, which often tends to be overlooked in many bee outreach campaigns. and to also bring awareness to some gaps in data in the tropical countries that make it kind of challenging to really assess bee species in some of the most biodiverse regions in the world. And of course, to promote STEM, eco-literacy, culture, story, and language. This is a bee event that took place in Guatemala City. You can see the kids are, it's called Bee Day, and they came in all dressed for the occasion, dressed as bees. And some of them, the flower team here are sharing some of the resources with them. And not good, we had about 2,000 some families we reached out to, many of them Hispanic families, in Tucson Book Festival. While we've been kind of developing the resources and reaching out and forming collaborations and partnerships with schools and the areas that we hope to, we're kind of like still in the kind of the first phase of this, largely the development phase. But as we've been doing that, a model has kind of evolved, emerged as we been rolling this out. And that is the model that shows how story can represent multiple and integrative systems of knowledge. And I have about 6 of these kind of listed here. I'm just going to kind of quickly go through them and highlight them by way of provide some examples. But like the first one is traditional ecological knowledge, then the importance of collection-based data being integrated into the story, the ecology of place, knowledge base regarding ecological field studies, and then how all that data can be pulled together and integrated in forming and meaning and allowing participants to reflect on and deconstruct and write their own stories that will reflect more of what we call critical pedagogy. And then that story can promote new awareness and meaning as it applies within an educational context. And then, of course, the last one, 6, how might this new awareness and new understanding inform community science? How might story empower action and engagement as participants become contributors and educators of one's own local biodiversity? So there's this real emphasis and need, I think, of place-based community science and connecting story with place. So of course, if we were going to start from the beginning, which is the traditional ecological knowledge, and with our focus on stingless bees, we know that melipone culture has been around in Guatemala and Mexico, Yucatan for some 3,000 years. And so the sacredness and importance of the stingless bee is still very, very prevalent even today. But we look at their codexes and, their look at the ancient Mayan iconography. We can see beekeepers basically here, and some gods, the bee gods, the Kankab, and various other symbols that actually Dr. Helmuth and I are actually looking at, doing some research on how bees appeared in ancient Mayan iconography. But we can, if we look at the size of these bees, kind of in relation to these godlike beings here, kind of in itself kind of shows the importance, that the stingless bee had to the ancient Maya. So Amuzin Cub, Mayan god of bees, and we're kind of looking at these symbols. They kind of look like, we call them corkscrew glyphs. They're often found on honey, what we think are honey pots, and may refer also to hallucinogenic stingless bee honey made from a particular species of flower, Ipomea corimbosci. So we're doing some interesting research there, I think, and hopefully to publish soon on that. Collection-based data is a second category. And that, that it's crucial to base our story on real data, because data can tell us a lot about power structures over time, how cultures interact and engage with their environment, and it provides that context, along with what we know about a particular species. And also using AI can tell you a story. If you just plug in iDigBio data, into AI platform, it will spit out a whole story. So it's a lot that you can get for inspiration for how you would integrate this story with your main story that you're creating. Because the story of this data shows that Mexico didn't really become involved into the studying Melipona biche till the 1980s. And then around 2009 to the present, we see this real uptick in community science observations, largely probably due to iNaturalists. But we see more reference to Mayan names such as Zun and Cobb, an increase in observations of stingless bees in their natural habitat. So I think that is a really interesting thing that came out of that. Of course, ecology of place, which I kind of already mentioned, how might traditional ways of knowing change the biodiversity story to one that's more meaningful, equitable, and place-based. And then as 4 and 5 has to do with connecting science with self and cultural identity. Some of our key research questions that have continued to evolve in this project. How can story kind of be used as a tool for critical reflection and cross the divide between language, which often poses as barriers to many educational programs, but how might story cross some of those divides, and then how might it promote meaningful action engagement with one's own local biodiversity as in community science? How might story actually motivate communities to engage with science and then the understanding of it? And so kind of I ask, like, what story does your data? I encourage you to ask, what story does your data tell? The data that you work with. I think we need to ask the question, who gets to contribute to science? What data counts and what doesn't, and who should decide? I think this is all part of this critical pedagogy approach in that we're looking at how this can apply and also to apply a more integrative approach with our data. How does data inform what and how we teach and learn? And how can we align, the biodiversity data with the cultural historical data and promoting a more critical perspective of the interplay of society, power, and justice? And so to recognize, lastly, that the biodiversity story is also a very human story, and we don't want to ignore that or look that, but to consider that, and when we're looking and working with data. So thank you. Yes. So if I will see if I can get maybe a little 2-minute sneak preview. The link is available. I will give the links to this if you want to see the whole thing. It's only 7 minutes, but let me do a stop share. Okay. Do I have time left? I guess that's the big question.
Yeah, you have enough. You have 2 minutes.
I have 2 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes to show. All right. Let's see. Let's see if we get that to work.
One morning, Little Smart Bee ran into a honeybee who landed on the same flower. Hey, you! Buzz off! This is my flower.
I believe I was here first.
What kind of sorry excuse for a bee are you anyway?
What do you mean?
You're really puny.
Well, what kind of bee are you?
Why, I'm a honeybee, of course. Clearly I am bigger than you and probably have a bigger brain, too.
For your information, I'm a stingless bee, and I happen to be very smart.
If you're so smart, how come you don't have a stinger?
We used to. I guess over time, our stingers must have shrunk.
Us female honeybees have a powerful stinger. See here? And believe you me, I will use it if I have to.
You don't scare me.
What makes you think you're so special anyway?
I'm a native bee. That means I've lived here long before you arrived. We have an important job pollinating the native plants and flowers here in Guatemala.
So what? Humans prefer us because we make a lot more honey than you. More honey means more money.
All right. I guess to Victoria. Thank you, everybody.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. I'll go ahead and start to share my screen. Okay. So I'm Victoria Westover, and today I'm going to be talking about @DigInverts, which is our social media platform that we use for the DigIn TCN. And so I'm from the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles, and I currently work as the senior coordinator for the DigIn TCN project at NHMLA. And today I'm going to talk about how we as a TCN created a process to streamline science communication via social media. And so before we get into social media itself, I want to speak about what DigIn is so you have the full context. So DigIn is, or the Documenting Marine Biodiversity for Digitization of Invertebrate Collections project, aims to create public digital records of over 7.5 million specimens from the United States legacy of marine exploration. So these are marine invertebrate specimens that are housed at various museums and universities across the United States. And they were collected over the past 2 centuries, and they represent a very wide range of marine life. They were pulled up with nets or scooped up from seabeds with grabs. They were hand collected near shore or by divers. And they all contribute to this library of biodiversity that captures the state of life in the ocean each year. And because these specimens provide a comprehensive record of that biodiversity, they serve as a time machine that allows scientists to track changes in marine ecosystems over time.
Hey,
And
Victoria.
DigIn is, yes.
I'm sorry. Can you do me a favor real quick and try to stop sharing and share again? We're not seeing a presentation view. We're seeing your browser and it's in a smaller window. We had kind of tried to play with this previously. So let's see if if we can change it. And if not, we'll just go with this and we can share the presentation later. Okay, your screen, we've got a bigger view right now. Perfect.
Better?
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry about that, everyone. So yes, so we're working to make these records accessible because right now a lot of them are trapped on museum shelves and they're physically in these institutions, and we want to be able to publish them online so that researchers around the world can access them and these valuable resources. So our goal is to make available 7.5 million specimen records. And so we have 19 collections throughout the United States that are working on this project. And we also are in partnership with universities as well for infrastructure support. We are working with an outside institution to help with transcription of these specimen labels that we are getting that we need to just transcribe in order to publish. And so as you can see, we have a lot of institutional partners across the United States, ranging from Hawaii all the way to Virginia. And we try to get together for retreats every so often, so we're able to make those in-person connections. And here's a map showing the geographic distribution of DigIn institutional partners, so you can see how we are from coast to coast across the United States. And Institutional holdings. So this is just showing the amount of specimen records that these institutions have, or these specimen lots. And then we have our digitization target versus the total amount of records. So as you can see, for most institutions who have rather smaller collections compared to NHMLA, they are aiming to digitize 100% of their collections. But for us at NHM, that is just not possible. As you can see, we have over 40% of the total digitization target is at our institution of NHMLA. And so we are aiming to digitize just 320,000 lots. And part of my role at NHM is that I am the senior coordinator of digitization. So I am working to manage our undergraduate students to digitize this. Ooh, apologies. There we go. So we have about 25 work-study students from the University of Southern California, which is right across the street from NHM. And our students, we train them in order to be able to recognize different types of labels and enter that data into a database. So I'm going to show a time lapse of what this work looks like. And our digitizers are working in the crustacea collection room right now, as you can see. And they're picking up the jars one by one, and we put these mobile workstations in the aisles, in the compactors themselves, so that the students are able to pick up a jar from where it is on the shelf, taxonomically arranged, and then digitize it and put it right back where it came from. And so this is a view of that workflow and what it looks like at NHM. Of course, the digitization workflow is different at other institutions, but since we have such a large digitization target, we created this engineered system that's kind of like factory work, where these students are able to just enter a couple digits, the taxon information from the record, and then move on. So we have some skeletal data, and maybe we're not capturing everything on the label, but we're trying to capture so many that we think some data is better than nothing. So that's just the DigIn process at NHM. And in addition to managing other students, I also am the social media coordinator. And so I want to explain why the DigIn TCN decided to embark on this multi-institutional social media campaign, why we decided to go through this effort. And so the three main reasons are project visibility, connecting each other, connecting TCN institutional partners, having some cohesive social group, and being able to know a little bit more about the people involved. And then another benefit that we realized as we got started on this effort is that we created a library of content that we're able to use for many other purposes, which I'll get into. So the first reason, social media for project visibility. Social media has become a very effective tool for science communication, and TCN should leverage this free, accessible, user-friendly tool in order to connect with audiences they might not otherwise. And so there are 2.3 billion users on Instagram and 588 million users on X. And just by putting your content out there, making it public, you're able to just reach out to users who might not know about museums, might not know about marine specimens, and might not have their toe in the science world. And one of our listed broader impacts on our grant goals was to create tools and resources for public engagement. And so this is one avenue for doing that. And then we also want to connect TCN institutional partners. So these are some of the DigIn participants from across the country. And this grant started in 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020 and how we were very isolated and not able to connect, on top of being thousands of miles apart, as you can see from our map of our institutional partners. And so what we decided to do is we wanted to also have this campaign in order to show each other what we're doing in the collections. It makes the project have so much more purpose behind it, and people are much more excited about their work if you're able to share it with others. And then we can see what the collections look like at other institutions, what their digitizing workflows are like, what type of specimens do they have, and which taxons do they have more represent more in their collections. And so that is another part of this. I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but we do have scientist spotlight posts that we put out every week that we highlight one person working on the DigIn project. And that can be a top scientist and researcher, the curator or collection manager at a university or museum, or a digitizer or a work study student, an undergraduate, really anyone who is DigIn or DigIn adjacent. And so that is just so we have some more information that makes those meetings and our group gatherings a little more personal when you're able to know some information about the people you're working with. And we do require everyone to submit a fun fact about themselves, so that way they're able to make those Zoom breakout rooms a little less awkward if you know some information about the people you're meeting with. And so these are some of the Scientist Spotlight posts that I was discussing, and also just some posts about education, outreach, and things that our colleagues are doing in the field. So the other benefit that we realized to having this social media campaign and all this effort into this strategy is that we created this giant library of information and content that we can repurpose for other needs. So anytime at NHM that we have an outreach event, we're able to go back to the Instagram post, find a cool organism that we talked about, get that information, fun facts, what the organism is, what its habitat is, what it eats, anything that we've posted, and then we're able to repurpose that and have this resource very easily. We copy all this information into a spreadsheet so we can just quickly look up whale barnacles, find the post we made about that, and then we have lots of information already gathered for us. And this is really useful with our students. We're able to tell them to go to the Instagram, pick a few things that they want to talk about when they're helping us with outreach events. And we also use this during our educator workshops. So at DigIn, we have some teacher workshops where we try to teach teachers about the work we're doing, try to give them resources for marine biology lessons in K through 12 classrooms. And having these Instagram tools are able to kind of show them what we're talking about and have just more content for them to look through. So all the benefits we know about creating a social media campaign, project visibility, connecting TCN institutional partners, and creating this library of information. But coordinating this campaign is time-consuming and challenging. And so we had to find a way to make it possible without having this heavy demand on already busy curators, collection managers, and museum and university staff. So our solution to this was creating these assignments where we incentivize participation in this social media campaign by just mandating 4 posts from every institution every few months. So about every 6 months, you just have to enter information on 4 Google forms, and we try to make it as simple as possible so that way it's minimal time from this busy museum and university staff. So we have a calendar that we actually developed with USC's Annenberg Agency. They helped develop a nice calendar where we're able to click on the event and you can see the post that someone has submitted, and you're able to see when the upcoming post will be shared with the public. And every month I will send reminders and information to our DigIn colleagues about the type of content they have to submit and when their due dates are. So these are the 4 content forms that I was discussing. We have our invertebrate of the week, our scientist spotlights, our Friday fun facts, and our general content. So the invertebrate of the week shows a different specimen every week and a few interesting tidbits of information about it. And that way we are able to share more about these organisms and why they're important to the general public. The scientist spotlight post, like I talked about before, highlights a person working on DigIn at various institutions. Our Friday fun fact is any random, wild, funky fact about marine invertebrates or the institutions involved in the project. And then general content is anything else, any outreach events that museums and universities are doing, any holidays that we want to celebrate. We had a fun Instagram reel we created for World Octopus Day. So really anything else that people want to share can go into that category. And the benefit of having these Google Forms is that it makes all the content uniform. So we have certain file types that institutions are able to upload, and they just type in 4 sentences into a box, and it's very stringent guidelines. That way it makes it easy for me or other people working on accumulating the content, easy to put together to be able to share. And the last thing we do is once the content has been submitted on the Google Forms and I or one of our students assemble it into a post, we share it on a shared Slack channel, and that way we have peer approval. So we use the React function where DigIn colleagues will read the post and then they'll hover over it and add an emoji just to signify that they read it and they approve it. And if they have any edits, they can add that as a comment. So with each of these posts, what we realized works best with our audience is to try to make it about a story. So instead of sharing different pieces of information about certain specimens or people, we decided to focus on one thing. So in this case, we had a lovely story from the Virginia Institute of Marine Science on horseshoe crab blood. And instead of you could talk about so many different things with horseshoe crabs, but by focusing on their blood, we were able to focus on one thing, have a direction for the story, and that was definitely more popular among our audiences when you compare posts that have one clear direction and a story behind it versus ones that just kind of share disparate information. And so this was a great post on horseshoe crab blood, and it shows why scientists use it and why researchers use it and why it's blue, which is fascinating. Another example of this is we have this post on whale barnacles in the family Corionulidae, and there's a lot of information that we could share about these whale barnacles, and in this case, we decided to focus on how they attach to whales and how they sometimes deattach to whales and why they might fall off. And so this post was from the California Academy of Sciences, and we have a nice picture of the whale barnacles on a beached whale. And then as you click through the post, you see the specimens, how they're curated in the museum and in the jars. Then you see where you can see the dried whale skin on the inside of the whale barnacles. And then this is a fossilized specimen as well that they shared. So as you click, you get more detail about this species that we're highlighting. And then the last piece of information is how they attach. So how the calcium carbonate shells, where they attach on the whales, on the pectoral fin, on the fluke, on the throat, and why. And so that is kind of our goal with the storytelling, is we want to just focus on a few things, and we just realize that resonates with people because you don't want to provide too much information where they feel overwhelmed. Another thing that we decided to focus on are Instagram Reels, because with the popularity of TikTok, especially among Generation Z and younger folks, Instagram created this reel component in order to compete with applications like TikTok. And they're these short form videos that most people engage with. Actually, 50% of Instagram users' time is spent on Reels rather than posts. And so we decided, in order to be competitive, we also wanted to create these fun Instagram Reels to hopefully reach a few other people who would not normally be consuming our whale barnacle or other content. And so we worked with one of our undergraduate students who is very good at creating these Instagram Reels. And we basically tried to create fun things that might engage different types of audiences. And so I will play
Welcome to
one of
DigIn
these.
Diaries, the show where I talk about marine
You can see
invertebrates
what we're
and
talking
the DigIn
about.
Project. My name is Rainey, and I'm a work study student here at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County. Today, we are talking about the DigIn Project. But what even is DigIn? That's a great question. I would love to tell you. DigIn is an NSF-funded project dedicated to digitizing hundreds of thousands of marine invertebrate specimens. We're spearheading this effort here in LA, but DigIn encompasses 19 collections across 22 different institutions. Now, some of these specimens have very nice, clean, and easy-to-read labels, like these guys. But for a lot of these really old jars, the labels are, well, less than ideal. My job as a student digitizer is to scan barcodes for each lot and then type all of the label data into an online database. That way, anybody can go online and see exactly what we have in a very easy-to-read label format. Now, I know what you may be thinking. Why should I care? They're just spineless creatures that live in the ocean. Well, did you know that around 75% of the animals in the ocean are invertebrates? And we have so many of them, like hundreds of thousands, millions even. They're really small. Some of these specimens have been here so long that we've completely forgotten about them. By going through and digitizing everything, we open up our collections to the world so everybody can see exactly what we have. So if you're researching, say, marine isopods, you'll know exactly where to find them. If you're interested in learning more about the DigIn Project, for example, learning about different types of labels we have or different types of marine invertebrates, go ahead and give us a follow. I'll be making more of these videos. Until then, I will see you next time on DigIn Diaries. Welcome to the DigIn Diaries, the show where I talk about marine invertebrates.
So that's one example of our Instagram Reel that was just trying to give a little explanation about the DigIn project. Another example we have students who tried to pick which specimen was their favorite in the collection as they interact with so many as they're digitizing. And so this is an example of one of those.
Favorite marine invertebrate?
Oh, I know the perfect one. Come here. So when I'm doing a crustacean lab, I like looking at the shelf. It's full of crabs and lobsters. And my favorite one is, down here. Come here. It's the frog crab. It's a frog crab. This one in particular is the ranana species. It's one of the largest frog crab species out there. And what's so cool about it, as you can see from its legs down here, is that they have really short legs relative to other crabs. What makes it so cool is that they walk forwards and backwards rather than side to side. And just in general, just look at its crab shell. It's a really cool pattern that I like a lot.
Hey, Colton.
And luckily, we found out that one of our silly little clips actually went viral and reached and was played 1.1 million times, and it reached over 600,000 accounts. And so we were hesitant to post things like this at first because they are a little out of the box and different. There's not much sound to this, just slight background music, so I'll talk over it. But it's a silly little video that seems unassuming at first, but happened to strike a chord with a lot of people and was viewed so many times. And so we were really happy to report how it reached so many different people, and we tried to mimic that short form content in order to just engage a wide variety of audiences. And so we were surprised that we reached over 600,000 unique accounts just with that little 1-second clip you just saw. And so I'll end by saying we were able to post over 200 Instagram pieces of content and 85 X posts in the last few years of the DigIn project. We're continuing to do so, and we're hoping to find some way to push all of those pieces together in order to use them continually. We want to export this, have this be a big resource for all of our DigIn partners to use, because we have put so much time and effort into creating this over the last few years. And it is a group effort. We have all of the posts come from all of the institutions. Everyone's done a wonderful job of staying on schedule and filling out those Google forms. And we try to make the process as easy as possible in order to encourage participation. So I encourage all projects that are akin to TCNs, where you have this multi-institutional collaboration, to think about creating some social page in order to connect different people to each other and showcase your work with a large audience. So I will stop my share, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Yeah, both those presentations were wonderful. Thank you all so much. If I don't see any questions in the Q&A, so if folks want to put a question in the Q&A for either Anne or Victoria, please do so. Or you can raise your hand and we can unmute you. But yeah.
And I actually, while other people are thinking of questions, excuse me, I actually have one for you, Victoria. So you were talking about Instagram Reels and doing these more short form videos, and I'm on Reels all the time. Like I'm a scroller. Have you found that doing like trending audio, sort of like the hairstyle one, have you found that doing that has consistently gotten you more views, even though it's museum centric content?
I think it's hit or miss. So
Okay.
some do really well, and we have tried various trending ones that seem so out of the box and don't make sense to me or other staff. But some of our students assure us that it's really popular and will do well. And sometimes they do. And it's kind of a risk because you never know what's going to hit. So you just have to throw a lot out there. So if you go to our page and look at the reels, there are some funky ones and some do well, some don't do as well, but they're just fun to try different ones and see what sticks. So I would say we're working on making it more consistent, but we do like to try the out of box things, and it has paid off with that coconut crab reel.
Thank you.
Also, I guess while we're waiting, if waiting to see if any other any other questions come in, I wanted to share the next, we're going to skip next week because it's Thanksgiving. And then December 5th, we will, let's see if I do this right here. December 5th, we will have Nori Ewan from Pillsbury and possibly other folks from the Pillsbury TCN will be talking about the Pacific Island Land Snail Biodiversity Repository. That will be at 1 p.m. instead of 11 a.m. to accommodate for Nori, who is in Hawaii. And then also, I want to again highlight, just make sure that everybody on their calendar has a BioDigicon, which will be at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., September 23rd to 25th. And we're hoping that this will be a larger than ever event and a celebration of biodiversity digitization. So hopefully everyone can join us there too. I will stop sharing.
And also, if you do want to look more into BioDigicon, like Jill said, it's going to be like awesome. I just dropped a link to our website in the chat, so please go check that out.
And you can register for the next webinar here.
Great.
All right.
Also,
we have a question.
We have a question for Anne. So, Anne, is there a Spanish spoken version of the video with English subtitles, or is it only spoken in English with the Spanish subtitles?
Yeah, great question. Yes, we do. We have two versions. We have, so we, contracted some Spanish voiceovers for the Spanish version, and then it's in English subtitles, and then we have the English version with the Spanish subtitles. Yeah, and like I said, we hope to also maybe include some Mayan languages as well.
Okay. Wonderful. Go ahead,
All our
Anne.
I'll just say all our resources are bilingual. Yeah.
Okay. All of these recordings for the series will be posted on the wiki page, Anne or Victoria. If there's anything else that you want me to link there, we can do that too. But thank you everybody for tuning in. Hopefully we'll see you next month. I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving, and thank you again to our speakers.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.